Late in life, Anthony Quinn finally chose to speak openly about Charles Bronson, and when he did, his words carried the authority of a man who had survived hardship rather than merely portrayed it. Quinn was not interested in gossip, rivalry, or myth-making. What he offered instead was reflection shaped by decades of lived experience. He understood Bronson not as a symbol of violence or intimidation, but as a man formed by scarcity, endurance, and self-protection. Quinn recognized that some men learn early to speak loudly, while others learn to survive by saying very little. His reflections were calm, thoughtful, and generous, revealing empathy rather than judgment. By the time Quinn broke his silence, he had little left to prove, and that freedom allowed him to speak honestly. What emerged was not a revelation meant to shock, but a quiet acknowledgement of shared origins and different paths shaped by the same unforgiving realities. From poverty to persistence, Anthony Quinn was born Manuel Antonio Ralpho Quinojada on April 21, 1915, in Chihuahua, Mexico, into a life defined early by instability and struggle. After his family moved to Los Angeles, poverty became a daily reality, forcing Quinn into grueling labor at a young age. He worked in construction, boxing, and various manual jobs, experiences that hardened his body and sharpened his understanding of human endurance. These years left a permanent mark on his worldview, grounding him in realism rather than illusion. Quinn never romanticized hardship, but he understood its shaping power. The physical strain, the hunger, and the constant uncertainty became part of his emotional vocabulary, later visible in his performances. Long before Hollywood recognized him, Quinn had already learned discipline, resilience, and survival. These traits did not come from acting classes, but from necessity, forming the foundation of the authenticity that audiences would later find impossible to ignore. An unexpected path toward art and acting. Quinn's life took a pivotal turn when his artistic talent brought him into contact with architect Frank Lloyd Wright. While studying art and architecture, Quinn impressed Wright with his expressive intensity and creative instinct. Wright famously encouraged him to pursue acting, recognizing that Quinn possessed a raw, emotional force that transcended traditional artistic boundaries. This guidance altered the course of Quinn's life, offering him a path where his lived experience could become an asset rather than a burden. Acting was not an escape from hardship, but a continuation of it through expression. Quinn approached performance with the seriousness of a craftsman, believing that truth mattered more than polish. His early years in Hollywood were not glamorous. They were filled with rejection and typecasting. Yet even then, Quinn absorbed everything, learning patience and control, while waiting for the industry to catch up to what he already knew about himself. Breaking barriers in a resistant industry. Beginning in the 1930s, Quinn endured years of restrictive and stereotypical roles that reflected Hollywood's narrow view of identity rather than his true range. He played villains, outsiders, and background figures, often denied depth or dignity. Still, he persisted, refusing to allow frustration to harden into bitterness. His breakthrough came in the early 1950s, when his emotional power could no longer be ignored, winning Academy Awards for Viva Zapata in 1952 and Lust for Life in 1956. Quinn became the first Mexican-born actor to receive such recognition. These victories were not just personal achievements. They represented a quiet disruption of Hollywood's entrenched limits. Quinn proved that authenticity could prevail over stereotype. His success was earned through patience and conviction, not compromise. And it opened doors not only for himself, but for future generations seeking representation with substance rather than tokenism. A career defined by humanity. With films like Zorba the Greek, Lawrence of Arabia, and more than 150 roles overall, Quinn achieved iconic status without losing his grounding in human complexity. His portrayal of Zorba in 1964 captured joy, defiance, sorrow, and vitality in equal measure, reflecting Quinn's own philosophy of living fully despite pain. He brought dignity to characters often reduced to symbols, insisting on emotional truth even within epic narratives. Beyond acting, Quinn expressed himself through painting, sculpture, and writing, driven by a need to create rather than merely perform. His artistry was restless and expansive, mirroring a personality that refused confinement. Yet, for all his intensity, Quinn understood restraint, recognizing when silence spoke louder than speech. This awareness shaped not only his performances, but also his perspective on other actors who embodied strength in quieter, more contained ways. A life of passion and contradiction. Anthony Quinn's personal life was as complex as his screen presence, marked by deep devotion to family alongside undeniable restlessness. His long marriages reflected commitment, while his personal struggles revealed the difficulty of reconciling passion with stability. Quinn never presented himself as flawless, nor did he attempt to sanitize his life's contradictions. He believed human beings were shaped by both devotion and failure, connection and distance. These experiences deepened his empathy, allowing him to understand others without illusion. Rather than denying his imperfections, Quinn acknowledged them as part of the same force that fueled his creativity. This self-awareness would later inform how he viewed Charles Bronson, not as an opposite, but as another man navigating survival in his own way. Quinn understood that strength manifests differently, depending on the wounds one carries and the armor one chooses to wear. Seeing Charles Bronson clearly. When Quinn finally spoke about Charles Bronson, he did so without comparison or competition. He saw Bronson as a man forged by poverty, hardship, and emotional restraint, much like himself, though expressed differently. Quinn admired Bronson's ability to command attention through silence, recognizing it as discipline rather than limitation. Where Quinn embraced emotional chaos and connection, Bronson guarded himself through distance and control. Quinn believed Bronson's toughness was not aggression, but protection, a way to survive an industry eager to reshape authenticity into marketable comfort. He respected Bronson's refusal to soften himself for approval. To Quinn, Bronson represented honesty, a working-class resilience that did not seek validation. Their differences did not divide them. Instead, they illustrated how similar origins can produce contrasting but equally valid forms of strength. Masculinity beyond myth. Quinn rejected the idea that masculinity required domination or spectacle. In his reflections, he emphasized that Bronson's legacy should not be reduced to violence or intimidation. Instead, he framed Bronson as a symbol of endurance, a man who embodied the quiet dignity of survival. Quinn understood that Hollywood often mistakes silence for emptiness and restraint for emotional absence. Having lived through the same pressures, Quinn recognized the courage it takes to remain authentic in an industry that rewards conformity. His words reframed Bronson not as a caricature, but as a human being shaped by necessity. In doing so, Quinn also redefined strength itself, presenting it as honesty, self-knowledge, and resistance to erasure. His reflections served as a corrective to simplistic narratives, reminding audiences that real masculinity is rarely loud and almost never simple. Final years and earned peace. In his final years, Anthony Quinn withdrew from Hollywood to Bristol, Rhode Island, finding peace overlooking Narragansett Bay. Away from cameras and expectations, he embraced stillness, reflection, and creative freedom. He passed away on June 3, 2001, at the age of 86, leaving behind a legacy shaped by perseverance, artistry, and emotional truth. Buried beneath an old maple tree in his own backyard, Quinn's final resting place reflected his lifelong rejection of pretense. It was simple, personal, and deeply human. His words about Charles Bronson echoed the same philosophy that guided his own life. Strength rooted in authenticity, lived fully without disguise, In the end, Quinn's reflections were not just about another actor, but about survival, respect, and the many forms courage can take when shaped by truth rather than image.